Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout and Outspoken. And I have an incredible treat for you today. We're going to do it every week. I'm going to present to you the LegiSector ledger. So, what is that and why does it matter? Those of you who know my past know that here you go. Know that I used to be a political consultant for the Clinton re-election campaign and then for Gore 2000. And I was married to a White House speechwriter at that time in the Clinton administration. And, you know, I've been around politics my whole adult life as a journalist and as an advocate. So as a political consultant, being in the rooms where the decisions are made at the highest level, I saw that citizens don't get a seat at the table when it comes to knowing about legislation, certainly at the federal level, but this was also true at the state level. And for many decades, the technology really didn't exist to put what was happening legislatively in a really easy to understand, interactive way into the hands of citizens. So the bottom line is, until Daily Clout built these tools, BillCam and LegiSector, as well as Communities, our three legislative interactive tools, people really were blocked out, especially citizens were blocked out of what are the bills, what do they mean, what do they say. People couldn't share them socially. They couldn't create campaigns around good bills, pardon me, or stopping bad bills. And very often the bills were and still are written in legalese intentionally, making it very difficult to understand them. So we changed all of that. And it was really my experience watching how it was really just lobbyists and special interests then as a result, and their lawyers who were able to sit around and read the bills, understand the bills, consult their team about the bills. Everyone else was blocked out. It was from watching that, and also watching how elected officials lied on the Sunday morning shows and to their own constituents, and White House spokespeople lied about what was actually in the bill, and no one could challenge them. Even journalists couldn't cover the bills easily because you know, you'd Google a bill, and by the time you tracked it down, a draft would have updated, but you didn't know which was the latest draft. You didn't know if the draft you were looking at was still operative or not. And you couldn't follow bills in real time very easily. This was, you know, horrible to me. Like, I know this is kind of a nerdy subject, but it's also really not a nerdy subject, you guys. Are you going to run your democracy? Or are you going to just take as the gospel truth what you're being told about what's in a bill? So I personally, with a wonderful development team, a number of really brilliant technologists, some of them I can name and some of them I can't, because some people, risk a lot by even working on this. If they have, for instance, family in countries where there's active suppression of this kind of information, or families that are hostile to the United States. But we have very talented technologists all in the United States, which is important because we're handling people's sensitive political opinions very responsibly, very transparently. Our terms of service are right there. But we built BillCam, which lets you share bills interactively at the state and federal level, and all in one database, right? So you can see exactly what's going on in Colorado, in Connecticut, in California, in Hawaii, in Massachusetts, in all 50 states and federally. And we've had incredible success with citizens stopping bad bills, making bills better by crowdsourcing them, because you can post them on social media and people will say, oh my God, this doesn't cover pre-existing conditions, this healthcare bill, even though the sponsors are claiming it covers pre-existing conditions. Look at page 64, it doesn't cover pre-existing conditions. And by forcing that transparency and that crowdsourced engagement, just citizens have stopped bad bills, made bad bills better, changed the wording of bad bills, or launched good bills and passed them the way we launched and passed in 33 states the No Vaccine Passports bill. Pardon me. Or in a number of states, we drafted and inspired legislation to compel people, for instance, to show photo ID when they vote, or to ban vote ballot harvesting, to ensure same-day voting, paper ballots, and so on. And that actually, our draft bill became part of or inspired. I don't know for sure that they used our template, but it was pretty close. Inspired President Trump's and the Republican National Committee's platform of President Trump's reelection campaign for this election cycle. So it's amazing. It's amazing. The other thing that's amazing about it, and I need you guys to go play with BillCam and go play with LegiSector.com, and I need you to really consider subscribing to both, is that it's incredibly affordable. We have to charge something because we have development and hosting costs, and we are a business. We're not a nonprofit. But our competitors, who are not nearly as intuitive and user-friendly as we are, they charge like $6,000 a year for access to comparable tools that don't have all of our functionalities. And they're very opaque. You can't even find out what you're getting. You have to have a long phone call. If you're just a person or a small investor or an accountant, or you work in a nonprofit and you want to stay on top of the bills affecting your clients or your sector, or you're in healthcare, or you're in cannabis, any one of 27 sectors with LegiSector, you really can't do that, right? If you're not rich enough to hire your own lobbyist in DC, you're not going to be able to stay on top of the bills that you need to follow to really master and be ahead of the competition in your sector. And also those lobbyists, they're not conflicted, you guys. They have their own conflicts. They have other clients. They're not always going to tell you exactly what you should pay attention to or accurately represent what's in the bill. So all of this to say, every week we're going to send you, if you sign up for it, which you really should, over on LegiSector.com or on BillCam or on Daily Clout, sign up for this newsletter. Every week we're going to send you what we think are the most newsworthy bills in the LegiSector universe. And this is called the LegiSector Ledger. And the difference between BillCam and LegiSector, I've explained this before, it bears repeating. BillCam is for citizens. It's like, it's like Etsy for bills, right? You can share any bill on social media, you can search any bill, etc. LegiSector is, as I said, industry specific. And I think that's so important because you can create your own dedicated portal, or you can see on the top trending bills what is happening, what is moving, what's drawing engagement in any one of 27 sectors. And honestly, I don't know how anyone invests without this tool, because you're really investing blind. Whereas with this tool, even if you're just, an ordinary middle-class person wanting to know, should I put some money in gold, or, what's happening in the neighborhood of the house where I want to, maybe the house I want to purchase for my family, you take a lot of the guesswork away with LegiSector. And I'll tell you, not to show off, it's the opposite of showing off, but just one example, why I believe in this so much, this transparency, in addition to the civic, value, which is BillCam. And LegiSector also, of course, has civic value. It's transparency and accountability for our lawmakers and our legislation, but also the business uses. I am just an English major. I don't have an economics degree. I'm not a professional investor. I'm not a real estate specialist, but I was a broke single mom for 12 years. You probably didn't know how broke I was, because I, tried to kind of not wear that on my sleeve, but I was super broke, self-employed single mom living in New York, and I was self-employed as a writer, so I didn't have a pension of any kind beyond, what I could earn that would result in Social Security. So I knew I had to take care of my own future as well as securing my family's stability. I saved and saved and saved and saved for one little residential rental property. And thank God I did, right? But the bottom line is I used this tool to figure out where to buy a rental property. And with this tool, or with BillCam, which is the earlier version of this tool, I could see exactly where states were investing in communities, where they were putting in, rail trails or extra train stops, or, building beautiful walkways on waterfronts, reclaiming industrial areas for beautiful residential infrastructure. Also, by the same token, I could see where states were planning to put sewage processing plants, or, giant recycling plants, or, dumps, municipal dumps, right? Or state level, garbage processing, or giant solar farms, which I did a feature on recently. And so I knew where not to invest, because just solar farms as an example, whatever you feel about solar energy, dials down the value of properties in, surrounding the solar farm or solar facilities by like 20%. So by knowing exactly what the state was planning to do, or what the federal government was planning to do, I took 80% of the guesswork out of investing in real estate for me. And now I don't want to tell you, my personal circumstances, but now I am no longer a broke single mom, and I'm not I'm comfortable based on using this tool. It takes the guesswork out of a lot of investing. Just another example, paper versus plastic packaging. I knew that I should invest, in terms of like the stock market, in paper packaging businesses and interests, because I saw so many bills coming down the pipeline on a state level banning plastic packaging at supermarkets, for instance. So I thought, well, that's a built-in boom in that market. I'm going to, move to that. Lastly, I also saw, and I, featured this in my last LegiSector update, I saw that that the solar farms' productive lives were coming to an end in a lot of places, and they weren't yielding the permanent benefit that investors had been promised 10 years ago. And I was, at that time, my tiny retirement savings were invested in a fossil-free portfolio of stocks that I thought, oh, that's so good. I'm such a good person. I'll just invest in this. I'll have good karma. Well, I saw that my investment was going to tank. I was being managed by my local bank financial manager. And I closed it out. I moved everything out. And I understood exactly what to invest in. And so I saved my retirement from being decimated by collapsing solar investments, and also restructuring solar entities for utility companies. Now I will tell you, precious metals, yes, we have a sponsor who is a gold and silver company, but you can look at LegiSector and you can see, AI, like I'll show you, you can see what's booming and what's collapsing in terms of investment. So if you're a hedge fund manager, again, if you're a banker, if you're in real estate, but just if you're like a person who's trying to protect your retirement, your savings, it really takes the guesswork out of what you should be investing in. I don't want to say it takes all the guesswork out or overstate, but to me, I would never, ever, ever move money again anywhere without looking at LegiSector or having a LegiSector account. So let's take a look at what's going on. And I'm so excited that I know how to share my screen. And so you'll see that this is what's top trending this week, or most newsworthy, the Workforce Mobility Act. We'll take a look at that. Algorithmic Accountability Act. And when it says HR, it's federal. Autonomous Vehicle Acceleration Act. If it says SV or S, it's also federal. HR Financial Privacy Act and the Spectrum Pipeline Act. All right. So this is what it has to say. This week's legislative highlights spotlight key federal proposals that could reshape the landscape for employers, innovators, and everyday consumers. In labor and employment, the Workforce Mobility Act seeks to end most non-compete agreements, opening the door for greater job mobility and competition. So just be aware, like, that's kind of a positive sentence, but if you're a business owner, what you should hear in that sentence is kind of more negative, or more of something to talk to your lawyers about. It's also going to make it harder for you to protect your IP and your kind of your individual business, because it makes it easier for an employee or a contractor to work for you, learn everything about your methods, and then go more quickly to work for someone else, bringing that information to the competitor. All right. So it's a dramatic change, the Workforce Mobility Act, if it passes. We'll take a look. In technology, the Algorithmic Accountability Act would require large companies to test and report the fairness of AI systems. Whoa, that's either utopian or dystopian. The transportation sector continues evolving with the Autonomous Vehicle Acceleration Act, which updates outdated safety standards for self-driving cars. Again, I spoke a minute ago about how I would never invest again without a LegiSector account. I told you all, those of you who are following Daily Cloud, 10 years ago, that when it was like surreal to even think about self-driving cars, didn't exist, just an imaginary dream of Silicon Valley, I told you that it would happen, that they would happen, and that people should invest early, because I saw so many bills going through the pipeline at the federal level, funding research for self-driving vehicles. And I thought, a truism of doing this work is the federal government doesn't put, and Silicon Valley doesn't put, billions of dollars into researching something that is unlikely to happen. So they know what they're betting on. Autonomous vehicles are here. As you know, in places like San Francisco, they are already out on the streets. Autonomous self-driving delivery robots are, also rolling out right now. And so this is, this sentence positively puts it: if you are invested in autonomous vehicles, which updates outdated safety standards for self-driving cars, but if you are a human driver, you also want to know about this bill, because it probably gives more of the practice of traffic management to non-human vehicles, as opposed to you in your vehicle. All right. In finance, the Financial Privacy Act strengthens oversight of how the government collects and uses sensitive financial data. Well, that's very important. People are very tired of having all their data, especially financial data, harvested by, both banks and the federal government. More and more people, this happened to me when I tried to move some money at TD Bank. More and more banks are saying, in America, certainly this is happening in Canada, what are you going to use it for? Which is a total violation of your Fourth Amendment privacy rights. So we'll see about what that does in terms of strengthening your financial privacy. And in telecommunications, the Spectrum Pipeline Act would free up valuable radio frequencies to expand broadband and 5G access nationwide. Blah. All right. So do you guys have questions for me? A lot of people are reposting the stream. I know this is of interest to a lot of people, but I'm just going to go ahead and share what's in these various bills. All right, so let's start with the Workforce Mobility Act, and that's again S2031. So I'm going to show you something amazing, but I have to change how I'm showing my screen to do this. I'm going to click onto the bill in just a minute. This proposed bill would make most non-compete agreements illegal, so workers can change jobs or start businesses more freely. Ugh. Like you could go learn everything about a business, quit, and then start your own competitive business. These agreements currently block about 1 in 5 workers from working for a competitor or launching his or her own venture, which lowers wages and slows innovation. Also protects IP. This bill allows only narrow exceptions, such as when someone sells a business or for certain executives with severance pay. It keeps trade secrets protected through other laws instead of broad job bans. Enforcement would come from the FTC, Department of Labor, and state attorneys general, and workers could also take employers to court if their rights are violated. Now I'm going to do something amazing, but I'm going to have to change my setting to show you this. Stop screen, and then I'm going to start the screen again, share screen to, LegiSector. That is the bill right there. This is what you get when you have a LegiSector account. Whoa. You see which Congress, you see the Workforce Mobility Act right there. You see from that symbol on the upper left that it's a federal bill as opposed to a state bill. If it was a state bill, you would see a little symbol of that state. You get an AI generated summary, and the AI also breaks down exactly what the bill does. It wants to stop it, in AI's point of view, unfair job restrictions so employers can seek better work opportunities, employees can seek better work opportunities and help the economy grow while still protecting important business secrets fairly. Not only that, you can scroll down and see the history of this bill. So it's moving. It was read twice and referred to the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. It's with a bill, when there's activity and it's moving to a committee, that means it's in play, right? Very often bills, quote unquote, die in committee. That hasn't happened yet. The last activity was in June of this year. And you can see right there that it's a bipartisan bill. Senator Tim Kaine is blue, then you've got red, blue, red, exactly bipartisan. And if you like what this bill is doing or don't like it, you can click through and you can email these people right there. You can phone them right there. You can post to their Facebook or X or YouTube. So you are in direct contact with the sponsors of this bill and they cannot hide. And not only that, now I'm going to really blow your mind. Oh my God. Oh, you can see that. All right. You can see that the actual bill language is right there on LegiSector. So you don't have to depend on what these guys say to you. They all happen to be guides. You can read it for yourself. And if you don't like, say, Section 4 trade secrets, if you don't like how that's worded, if you think it's too broad as a business owner or too, loose or too strict as an employee, you can email or call the bill sponsor and say, hey, I want you to tighten up Section 4, or I want you to loosen up Section 4. How incredible is that? All right, so that's bill number 1. Let's take a look at other bills in this week's LegiSector ledger. What is next? Let's take a look at the Algorithmic Accountability Act. And I'm going to just, oh, wow, it's picking up my whole screen. That's cool. HR 5511. This bill would require large companies that use AI or complex algorithms to make major decisions, like who gets hired, approved for loan, or offered health care. It requires them to study and report how those systems affect people. So it gives the FTC authority to set rules requiring companies to evaluate their algorithms for fairness, accuracy, and potential harm. Businesses would have to submit regular reports explaining their findings and how they addressed any problems. And the FTC would publish key details in a public database so consumers and researchers can understand how these technologies are being used. And the goal is to make AI-driven decisions more transparent, responsible, and fair. And there you can see right there on your screen, I just can't believe this tool, it's so cool, the Algorithmic Accountability Act of 2025. You can see how that it's a federal bill. I explained how it's right there in the upper left hand. And here's the AI generated summary. And it breaks down exactly what's supposed to do, what's important. And, we should have a debate about that as a society, because this is going to make a big difference in how AI is used. So this is, again, a brand new bill. All right. The retext was introduced a week and a half ago, October 4th, 2025. And the history is, again, very new. It was introduced in the House on September 19th. And that very same moment, it was referred to the House Committee on Energy and Commerce. So who cares about this? Ooh, I'm getting a little chill. It is a totally blue bill, you guys. It's so blue. Oh my God. And I try to not be a partisan person, but as a reporter, my, antennae are definitely quivering, because this is not a bipartisan bill. And what we found in looking at bills for 10 years now at Daily Clout is that really good bills, meaning common sense bills that solve problems, tend to be bipartisan, or at least have some sponsors from both parties. And really tendentious bills tend to be all one party, because humans in America, their problems are not all Democratic or all Republican. So that's why you always want to take a close look at a bill that is just blue or just red. So here's some stalwarts. Eleanor Holmes Norton, representative in Congress, old school Dem representatives, some new ones. But it's all blue, 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 so blue. Now, there's a lot of blue. It's all blue. All right, well, and there's my old friend. I knew she'd be here, Rashida Tlaib. So she's, one of the most radically leftists in the House. So if she's on record supporting a bill, you really want to take a look at it. I'm not saying it's a bad bill. We don't know that yet, or a good bill, but it is definitely, they got the memo from the DNC. So what is the Algorithmic Accountability Act going to do? Let's take a look. Can you see the, yes, you can. I love the screen share thing. So biometrics, it's going to be harvesting algorithms from private industry and essentially make it available to the federal government. And it's going to be only companies that are larger than 5 million in annual gross receipts. So smaller companies are exempt. It's definitely a red tape applied just to larger, more profitable businesses. And the use of the data decision, it's going to affect, it's triggered, the need to collect this data and hand it over to the FTC is triggered in this bill by a decision or judgment that has any legal, material, or similarly significant effect on a consumer's life relating to access to or the cost, terms, or availability of education, vocational training, employment, essential utilities, family planning, including adoption services or reproductive services, financial services, healthcare, including mental health care, dental or vision, housing or lodging, legal services, any other service, program, or opportunity decisions which have comparable effects. All right, so it is a very long bill, not the longest, it's 47 pages. And the rest of this spells out kind of how you're supposed to issue these reports. So it creates a layer of red tape, essentially, and reporting requirements for more successful companies. And it requires impact assessment, covered entity impact assessment. So the algorithms have to be assessed with relevant stakeholders to make sure that they are fair, and they're assessing and documenting the data minimization practices of such algorithms, and they're assessing and documenting the current and potential future or downstream positive and negative impacts of such algorithm on privacy, safety, security of consumers, ongoing testing and evaluation of the algorithm. Wow. Well, this is a really important bill for every technologist and tech company to pay attention to, especially because it's moving so fast. Identify any likely material negative impact of the covered algorithm on consumers and assess any applicable mitigation strategy. Identify any capabilities, tools, standards, data sets, security protocols, improvements in stakeholder engagement, or other resources that may be necessary or beneficial to improving the covered algorithm. You guys, this is a really important bill. I'm not going to, keep reading it. You can see it for yourselves on LegiSector, but I can tell you already, just from what I read to you, this gives the federal government your algorithm, among other things, right? Your tech company's most valuable and privately held secret sauce. It hands it over to the federal government, or failing that, because it was a little unclear whether you actually have to hand over the code or hand over the effects. Honestly, this bill reads like it was written by people, maybe not drafted, but had input from people who don't really understand digital technology. But you definitely have to hand over your company's secret biometrics, private biometrics, and metrics. You have to hand over, and you have, I don't know how you're going to enforce this bill as a technologist. I'm not a technologist. I'm a CEO of technologists. As a CEO of a tech company myself, this is a very, very worrying bill, you guys, because it compels companies, tech companies, or any company like, that does everything's a digital company now, if it has a website, right, or a newsletter or a platform at all that people log into. But it compels every company over $5 million in gross revenue a year, which is, most successful companies, of course, in America, to harvest their users' personal data and hand it over to the federal government in the name of fairness and equity. That's what this compels private companies to do. So if our company is successful enough, which it isn't yet, I hope it will be someday, if we have a year which is a $5 million revenue year, which is foreseeable, I can't honor my terms of service if this bill goes through. My terms of service to you: protect your personal data. I'm not going to tell anyone what race you are if the algorithm gets that information. I'm not going to tell anyone, whether you look more at, liberal bills or conservative bills. I'm not going to tell anyone your age or your geographic location or your hobbies. Believe it or not, Google Analytics automatically harvests a lot of that data, whether I want to have it or not. Like, Google is harvesting it. Most people don't realize that. Not all of what I just described, but a lot of it: where you are, how old you are, what your interests are, whether you're male or female. Google harvests that already. This bill but I can still protect your more personal information. This bill forbids companies from protecting the privacy of their users. And I will tell you what jumped out at me. I've been watching for years now for that the federal government and big tech have been trying to get around HIPAA, which is the really important, beautiful federal law that protects your health privacy. And day by day, I just posted on X that I went to see my podiatrist this morning, and it wanted to know my sexual orientation. I couldn't log in to pre-register for my meeting with my podiatrist without telling them if I like girls or boys, or both, right? And it also wanted to know the gender assigned at birth to me. And my race. Well, everyone has feet issues, Black people and white people. Your feet aren't affected by your sexual orientation. There was no medical reason for my podiatrist's firm to harvest information about my sexual orientation, the gender assigned to me at birth. I mean, maybe women's feet are different, but I'm going to walk in and he's going to see that I'm a woman. Or if he's in doubt, are you a woman? He can ask me and I can tell him, right? But the platform is set up, and you're seeing this in your own daily life. You can't get in to more and more and more and more things you want to do digitally without sharing, revealing more and more and more information you don't want to share, right? Why? Because all that information is valuable. So that's why they're asking, that's why my podiatrist's platform, it's not even him, it's a platform that's probably giving a discount to healthcare practices that use it, right? Or maybe even cash back. I mean, people get paid to harvest this data. They do. That's why I'm so proud Daily Cloud doesn't do it, because it's very valuable to harvest people's data that they want to keep private. But you can be sure that somewhere in that terms of service, that a third party that is not my orthopedist practice or my podiatrist is getting Naomi's answer about whether she likes girls or boys, what gender she thinks she is, and what race she is, right? So one of the most valuable uses that biotech wants to harvest is private healthcare information or private health information. And HIPAA protects you from that. Well, this bill kills HIPAA. This bill kills HIPAA if it passes. So everybody, I've put you on notice. That it is. Let's go back up to the top of it so you can see exactly what it is. It's HR 5511. It is a Democratic bill, and it is moving. And, I am warning everyone watching this in the tech space, but any business that you've got to, I'm going to say, I'm supposed to be nonpartisan, but just objectively for democracy, this is a bad bill. Yes, algorithms can discriminate, but you know what? There are remedies already. If you feel like you're being discriminated against, I just won, 2 settlements, one from Google and one from X, because I showed that they discriminated against me, right? President Trump was my co-plaintiff. There are already remedies. If you think an algorithm or a tech company is discriminating against you, you can get like the metrics in discovery to show this. The company won't like it, but you can already sue them. This forces the federal government to be the broker of every single successful company's most valuable IP, right? It also opens it up. These people in Congress, a lot of them we've shown and seen recently are taking money from China or Turkey or, Qatar, right? Well, it doesn't guarantee the security of that information once it's in the hands of the federal government. This is one of the reasons I was so screaming and yelling about Doge, a private company getting access to our federal government's pristine, confidential data. Much as you may not like the federal government, they do a good job, protecting your data. Well, that's gone. We don't know if Doge has sucked up all of that valuable data for, Elon Musk's own private AI tool, which I predicted he'd be using on federal data sets, and I was right. I told you that. So you guys, I work in tech. Yes, I'm an English major. Yes, I don't know how to code, but I understand how valuable these data sets are, and I care about the Constitution and your First Amendment rights. And now I'm a business CEO, and I care about companies in America being able to grow and keep their own IP secure, because that's someone invested a lot of money in their own IP, their own algorithm, to get to the point where they're making 5 million or more a year. You're going to kill all of that with this bill as it stands. You're going to hand everything over to Rashida Tlaib and her colleagues. And, are they going to hand over your algorithm to Turkey or Qatar or China? Maybe so, but they're certainly going to use it to reward their own donors in the in whatever space. In healthcare, oh, you want a data set? We've got that data set. And I know that they're going to do this because the CDC did that under Biden. And I want to credit, this is not boring, you guys, this is really important. It may be nerdy, but you've got to pay attention to this, because this is life or death in the world we're in right now, a digital world. Dr. Henry Ely confirmed that the CDC was outsourcing the management of its medical data sets, which is illegal. They were outsourcing it to Gates-owned or Microsoft-owned third-party platforms who were harvesting and harvesting and harvesting your confidential data, the government's confidential data. They want to do this. Right now, when you log in to pay your taxes, I mean, I can't even log in to pay my taxes because I'm on the naughty list, apparently, of, people who sued Facebook. So, Facebook isn't letting me log in to pay my taxes, which is very annoying and discriminatory. Point is, when you go to ID.me to pay your taxes or to check on your Social Security, the login is now through Facebook or Google. That means they're harvesting and harvesting what goes on behind the login. You guys have to understand that, right? The person who owns the login owns what happens once you're logged in digital technology, unless there are complicated, barriers to that. So this is very serious, you guys. And if you don't want digital ID, monitoring your every move, you have to stop bills like this. So I said it, I'm not being partisan, but I also think the beauty of LegiSector and Bill Camp is that you can see exactly who you want to vote for, because they can't hide behind, oh, we're about, just, organic farming. No, you can see the Democrats are doing exactly what they're doing. It's like an X-ray. You can see the Republicans are doing exactly what the Republicans are doing. It's like an X-ray. You can see who's a good legislator and who's a hack. It's like an X-ray. So that's what you get with that bill. Let's now go to the next bill in the LegiSector ledger, and I think you can see that we're running low on time, so I'll just do one or two more. What's the most interesting? Well, this is very interesting. Another data privacy or data, violation. Well, they're also interesting. Let's go to the Transportation Motor Vehicles Act. So let's see what that does. Learn more. Can you see that? I need to share my screen so you can see it. Let's share the screen, and it's going to be that. So Autonomous Vehicle Acceleration Act of 2025, SB 1798. You can see right there that it is a federal bill. So what's it about? It aims to update and create clear rules and standards for self-driving autonomous vehicles, particularly the most advanced types that can drive themselves without any human help. So it's saying that it clearly defines what counts as an autonomous vehicle, and it privileges, this is my point about you never want to invest again without LegiSector. It definitely privileges the most advanced kinds of self-driving vehicles that drive entirely on their own. So this is really an example of technology with the help of this bill sidelining human drivers. So if you are thinking you're going to have a life as an Uber driver or a cab driver and you're a human being, you should probably count that out based on this bill. But also, if you're wondering what to invest in, human-driven cars or autonomous vehicles, you should know the federal government is putting a lot of money and legislative privileging behind self-driving vehicles rather than human-driven vehicles. And it also calls on the Department of Transportation to update safety standards so they work better for self-driving cars, removing obstacles created by rules based on human-driven cars. Oh my God. Oh my God. Certification processes, it gives flexibility to approve autonomous vehicles, even if they don't fit traditional safety test rules, as long as they are safe. You have to report to Congress, and it's about future planning. It requires a plan, a roadmap for how to support the commercial use of advanced autonomous vehicles, tackling challenges like technology, safety, and regulations. And it calls for ongoing updates. So it pushes America to lead the future of this technology while keeping people safe. I would say that I have noticed AI is most bullish about AI, in these summaries. But it definitely, again, it's a new bill. It was introduced May 29th, 2025. It's a short bill. It's only 7 pages long, but it's a very, very, very impactful bill as well, because it essentially, we've seen this before, privileges the world of transportation to phase out what's safe for humans and phase in giving roads to self-driving vehicles. That is what this bill does. And you can assume that, like cross-country trucking, you're going to see lanes, is my guess, if I were to read this bill carefully, devoted just to self-driving trucks. I'm interested to see what the truckers' unions will say about this bill, because it definitely makes humans into a liability. Like this bill, and I really want to explain about transportation bills. We've seen this in Brooklyn at this municipal level. We're helping Athena Clark, wonderful young candidate, run for city council in Brooklyn. And something I hadn't been aware of, even though I see it around me in the built environment all the time, is that there are these city bikes, right? And every couple of blocks, there's like a third of the parking spaces devoted to city bikes, e-bikes. And you think, oh, that's good. You're trying to solve global warming and give people transportation alternatives through these city bikes. Well, 80 or 90% of the time, the bikes are not in use. But only when Athena Clark told me, and I checked the fine print, I found out she was right. These city bikes are actually funded by Lyft. And Lyft and Uber are dumping millions of dollars on city council members in Brooklyn and New York. As a result, there are fewer and fewer parking spots for human beings who need to park their cars. And what's happened, and of course the subways are terrible and the buses are slow. So this reconfiguration of what's available for parking by Lyft, funded by Lyft, turns out to force people to take Lyfts. And then you see the circle, because Lyft is then, funding the city council members who will continue to pass bills to hand over more and more and more of our physical environment to Lyft and Uber, and make it harder and harder to be just a human being trying to commute to work or go see a show in town with your own human car. So that's the kind of, so we know that these bills, exist, that basically ask, and there are a lot of them. And that's why I got so passionate about LegiSector and BillCam, because people didn't vote for this. That's what I'm hearing in Brooklyn. We never voted for this. We never voted to be forced to take Lyft or Uber. That wasn't top of our list of priorities. Well, it's top of Lyft and Uber's list of priorities. By the same token, I don't see Republicans or Democrats clamoring to, assign the roadway and parking spots and the rules of the road and the safety practices on the road to self-driving non-human vehicles as opposed to keeping people in cars safe. I'm not seeing any human being on the left or right saying that, got to do that right away. I'm really interested in crossing the street with my child in a stroller in front of 7 self-driving cars with no human beings in them. No, nobody's calling for that. But the self-driving car people are calling for it. You can bet. I don't even know if Detroit is calling for it. I think this is more of a big tech thing. I think that if Detroit really knew about this, because Detroit is still making cars for humans, they would not like this bill. So, you've been warned, and let's see who is behind the self-driving vehicle bill. Oh, that's interesting. Autonomous Vehicle Act, it is one sponsor. The history is it was introduced May 15th, and it is a Republican, one Republican, Cynthia Loomis, and you can phone her right there. And again, it's been read twice and referred to the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, so it's on the move. I don't like it. You guys may like it. I don't know why a Republican is so worked up about, handing over our roads to self-driving vehicles, but now you know who she is, and if you've got a LegiSector account or you try it for 30 days for free, you'll be able to let her know how you feel about that. But again, back to investment. If you're a hedge fund manager or a wealth advisor and you want to outperform the market, you can search on LegiSector autonomous vehicles. You can see how many bills are making their way through the pipeline, and you'll be able to, unfortunately, even though I hate this bill, if I were a wealth advisor, I would be advising my clients to invest in self-driving vehicles and companies that are aligned with that, like companies that alter road configurations, charging stations, and so on for self-driving vehicles. All right, let's see one or two more while we've got the time on the LegiSector ledger. What is next? The Financial Privacy Act. So let's see who's behind that. Let's see if you can see that. Yes, you can. I love this. Can everyone see and hear me? Let me know your comments. Tammy E says, wow, that's scary. All the hacked Facebook accounts out there can also see your social security and ID. Absolutely. And don't think they don't use that data. All right. Like if you read their terms of service, it's very, very loose about how they can use your data. And that's true for a lot of tech companies that you use routinely. I always encourage people to get used to reading terms of service, even though it seems very boring and legalistic. You get the hang of it pretty quickly. But there are websites I just won't use or platforms I just won't use because of the way it harvests my data. All right, Financial Privacy Act, HB 1602. Again, this is a federal bill, and it also is really on the move. Introduced in February of this year in the House, and then that same day it was referred to the House Committee on Financial Services. So you can see some bills are just like, they have a lot of juice behind them. So it's moving through the legislative process. A committee consideration markup session was held in March. It was placed on the calendar, and it was reported and amended by the Committee on Financial Services. So it's zipped along, and it's a bipartisan bill. And that could be good. It looks like both a Republican, Representative Warren Davidson, and a Democrat joined forces for financial privacy. So what does it do? Rules and protocols. All right. It does seem like a very pro-privacy bill. What is this bill about? It's designed to increase transparency and strengthen privacy protections related to reports collected under the Bank Secrecy Act. And the US Treasury Department, through its division called FinCEN, collects millions of reports from banks and businesses about financial transactions and suspicious activities. These reports often contain sensitive personal financial details of everyday Americans, like when I was trying to pay my landscaper. It was a big check, and TD Bank asked me what it was for, and they had no right to. And I kind of had to say it was for my landscaper before they would authorize it. They shouldn't do that. But all that data, including the fact that it was for my landscaper, could be sold, right? Or disclosed. What if I'm having an affair, and I'm not, I wouldn't, but the reason to worry about the disclosure of personal data to the federal government in these bank sweeps is that, say you're an opposition leader and your bank statement shows that you spent 3 nights in a sex hotel with someone who probably wasn't your wife or husband. Now they have that information, they can use it, right? So key points: the Treasury Secretary must submit detailed yearly reports to Congress about how many financial reports have been collected and how they are used. They must include details about the rules and protocols used when government agencies like national security or law enforcement access this data. The Treasury has to review and update these protocols to make sure the collection and sharing of data is focused only on legitimate security and law enforcement goals. The bill requires safeguards to prevent unauthorized sharing or misuse of this sensitive financial information. Transparency measures require the Treasury to provide Congress with copies of these rules and notify them whenever changes are made. So I would say this is a good privacy bill. Again, it's not very long. It's only 8 pages. I would say it's necessary to have safeguards to make sure that your personal information is not sucked up and used against you. And there's someone whose handle is headless bourgeoisie. That's pretty funny. And I would say that it's a good bill, and I'm glad that it's moving. So if you care about privacy, again, privacy, Fourth Amendment, no warrantless searches and seizures. That's not a partisan issue. And I would say that this is a good bill, but you might have your own views about it. It certainly creates another layer of bureaucracy, which we've seen a lot of these bills really do. But you can contact the bill sponsors if you like it. And again, if you're in banking, if you're in mortgages, if you're just an investor, or someone who cares about privacy, you want to have your say about this bill. You want to know about this bill because it is moving. So that's that one. And then let's go to the last one or two before we run out of time. What is the last one? So interesting. The Spectrum Pipeline Act. Let's see, telecommunications. HR 651. This bill would make more radio frequencies available for commercial and public use by reallocating some that are now reserved for federal agencies. It requires the government to identify, auction, and release portions of the broadband gigahertz range for high-speed internet, 5G, Wi-Fi, and other wireless technologies. Federal users would gradually move or share access with federal agencies must cooperate with the transition, moving or sharing their usages as needed. And the government must provide reports and briefings to Congress to make sure transparency. Radio spectrum is essential for wireless communications like cell phones, internet, and emergency services. This bill helps free up important frequencies for commercial 5G networks and emerging tech, making internet faster and more accessible across the US. So to me, I'm not surprised that it's an all red bill because it's very pro-business and not pro-government at all. It basically, trying to be very neutral, but it basically forces the government to give up its own places on the spectrum make them available to the private sector. So you can see the sponsors there. They're both Republicans. And it's also a recent bill. In January, it was introduced in House and referred to the House Committee on Energy and Commerce. So it's not like zooming along the way the other bills are, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. To me, I'm worried about it because, it's very vague. So it could give more bandwidth to satellites, as I understand it, or certainly more bandwidth to 5G. Why I'm worried about it is that there are health problems associated with radio waves and exposure to 4G and certainly 5G, documented health problems. And this doesn't address that at all. And it just makes, there are still places in the US where, I have no signal, or I only have one bar. And that's actually kind of nice, I think, because you can get away from that kind of blanketing of 4G and now 5G frequencies, which are just not good for humans, animals. We didn't evolve with them. This doesn't deal with the health impacts at all, but it would make the whole, like everything 4 and 5G, all of America, you'd have no escape. You'd have really good cell service everywhere. My guess is it's also, these are linked to the technologies of the self-driving cars. The self-driving cars, if they aren't, connected fully, could not work or could crash or could stall. This is my guess. And, other Internet of Things programming also wants that bandwidth. So, and also, digital ID wants that bandwidth. Like, you will never be able to get off the grid, right? If everything can track you everywhere, and going into the middle of the desert, you can still be tracked no matter, because there's always 5G everywhere. I don't want to live in that world, but that's me. I don't want to have a world in which you can't physically get away from 5G. So I think this is a dangerous bill. I think it should be stopped. But other people may feel differently. Maybe you just don't care about the health impacts, you don't believe in them, and you just want to be able to make a phone call in the middle of the desert. If so, this bill is for you. Certainly Silicon Valley, I bet, gave a lot of money to these guys to launch this bill, and telecoms gave a lot of money. They've always wanted those bandwidths. The other thing I would say is that it's not good for the federal government to be forced to give up their bandwidths. Like law enforcement needs those bandwidths. I think the FBI uses some of those bandwidths. Probably our intelligence operatives need some of those bandwidths, I'm guessing, right? It's classified. So I don't think it's a good idea, but you consider it, you decide. But again, if you're investing in the Internet of Things, you should know that this bill will make the Internet. Sorry, guys, I canceled myself for a minute. Let's open up. So there's one more bill in the LegiSector ledger, but we have come to the end of our hour together. So I'm going to leave you wanting more, and I'm going to encourage you to go to legisector.com. And, I'm just going to shamelessly plug it. This is, as you've seen, an incredibly important, fascinating tool. And you can sign up for it, 30-day trial, $11.99 a month. Come on, right? As opposed to $6,000 a year. And also our competitors are not giving you these newsletters, to my knowledge, that kind of summarize, this is what you should be paying attention to. This is what's moving. This is what's most engaged. These are top trending. We have a page on LegiSector, which is top trending bills. Let me show you LegiSector before I sign off so you can see how beautiful it is. I'm so proud of it. There it is. Oh, I love it so much. I tried to design it with our technologists and our team to make it really easy and fun to use, because so many of these legislative tools are boring and gray and wonky, and you want to kill yourself. So these are the top trending bills in 27 sectors. If you're a journalist, this is totally like riveting. What's happening in reproductive rights, public lands and national parks, taxes, small business, telecom. I'm sure you're going to see the bill I just shared with you and top trending. Transportation, trade, voting rights, right? The news stories write themselves, and you can just sign up right there and get an industry specific portal right in your inbox. You can get notifications. It's a beautiful, beautiful tool. And there it is. And I'm so proud of it. But if you like this and you like the fact that we're, breaking down the barrier between you and your elected officials and the activity in Congress, we really do need you to sign up. And if you want to also donate to Daily Clout, so we can keep paying our developers to bring you these tools and to make them available in 132 democracies. Britain's going down the tubes. No one knows where to find their bills. We can build a British BillCam and a British LegiSector. It costs money, costs tens of thousands of dollars to build each of these platforms, but we can do it. We can do it for India. We can do it for Israel. We can do it for Germany. We can do it for France. We can empower every user of legislation in every democracy, in 132 democracies. The bills are there. They're just hidden. Like Britain's such a good example. Legislation.co.uk is the worst. They deliberately, these other countries hide the legislative activity in databases that are impossible to search. You have to know the bill title, or you have to know is it a bill or something else in France, a statute or a bill, some crazy distinction. You have to, and even then, the algorithm doesn't yield it up. It's terrible. You can't tell if it's, live or in the past. In the EU, you can't even search forthcoming legislation. You can't search it. I've had this fight with the EU press secretary in public on X, press office. They had to kind of stop arguing with me because the EU makes it impossible to see what Brussels is going to legislate for the whole European Union. We can change that, but we need your help. And if you're in the United States, you really need to subscribe, you guys, to LegiSector.com or to BillCam.com, depending on whether you want to use it as a citizen, that's BillCam, as a activist, nonprofit user, elected official, or investor, business owner, in any one of these 27 sectors. That's LegiSector. But go ahead and try it, you guys. It's free. LegiSector.com. Let me know how you feel about it. Let me know what you want to see us do with it. But you can sign up for this newsletter and you can see week by week what you need to pay attention to. All right, guys, I'm so proud of having brought you the LegiSector Ledger. This is Naomi Wolf. You can support us at Daily Clout, subscribing, donating. You can sign up for LegiSector.com, sign up for BillCam.com, and you can find me over on Substack. My Substack is Outspoken. And I'm so proud to bring you all of this, and I will see you soon. Oh, wait, not ending the stream without thanking our sponsors over at Daily Clout. So American Alternative Assets, right? I talked about gold. What if the next big crash is already in motion? I'm just keeping my finger on this so that I don't end the stream. And almost no one sees it coming. Every major economic collapse since 1929 was preceded by the same 7 warning signs. Right now, all 7 are flashing red, and these are not headlines. They are deep market indicators that Wall Street prefers you never to hear about. And that's why our friends at American Alternative Assets created the Bellwether Signal. Now, this is a free report that reveals what these signals mean and how smart Americans are protecting their savings with gold and silver before it's too late. So download your free copy at cloutgold.com. That's CLOUT gold.com, or call the company at 1-855-803-GOLD. That would be 855-803-4653, and get the facts, protect your future, and don't wait for the headlines to catch you off guard. Now, the other thing we need to protect is our health. So do you want to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? I certainly do. Do you want to look in the mirror and see a hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? I certainly do. I use this stuff. Discover Native Path Collagen, and this is types 1 and 3 collagen. And it's really important that it's made up of the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. It's found in your cartilage, bones, in your skin, nails, hair, and gut. Types 1 and 3 offer top-level benefits. Single ingredient, no fillers or additives, no artificial sweeteners. Now, Native Path Collagen is third-party tested for heavy metals, so you know it's pure and safe with no clumping. I love that about it. And also, you can get incredible bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packages at a fraction of the cost of other brands. I know this is true because I have actually I've traveled in the past, run out of my Native Path collagen, tried to get collagen. It's like, oh my God, it's $30 or more just for one container. Native Path is far more affordable. With 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 5-star reviews, a 365-day no-risk guarantee, it is a trusted choice. And you know that we at Daily Clout never bring you a product that we don't use ourselves and that we don't stand behind. So you can call their 800 number. And it's real human beings who really speak English and will really help you. And you can go to their Facebook page, which is real people sharing tips, questions, even recipes. So go to getnativepath.com/dailyclout for 45% off, you guys. Getnativepath.com/dailyclout, 45% off. You've got to do it. I am going to be 64 in 2 weeks. I'm scared of surgery, no fillers, nothing. I'm leaving myself alone. I don't want to mess with all that stuff, but I am really glad, both for my mobility and just general well-being, that I use Native Path collagen. And I'll keep you posted on everything that I'm learning about as I go. All right, guys, you've been very patient. Remember LegiSector.com and BillCam.com to drive your own democracy and never make any decision blindly when it comes to legislation again. All right, guys, take care.